Okay, Spanish 2, Test 7. There were a lot of concepts that we covered, but I only pulled out a few of them to actually test you on. There are a total of 28 questions, so it's a really short test. So, part 1 is questions 1 through 5. Okay, and this is dealing with past participles. The directions are: give the condition of each person or object by telling what they are in the present tense and changing the given verb to a past participle. So what we did is we learned how to, or y'all learned how to give the condition of something using the verb estar and the past participle. So by saying in the present tense, I want you to conjugate estar in the present tense, and then whatever verb is given is actually the condition, and that's what you have to change to a past participle. So you may have something like los alumnos en cansar. So to tell the condition of something, we have to use the verb estar. We conjugate it based on the subject, which is a person in this case. So we're going to say los alumnos están. Okay. So remember that in the present tense, estar is estoy, estás, está, estamos, están. So los alumnos están, and then we change this into the past participle. Now, to form the past participle, okay, if your verb is an AR verb, the new ending it gets is auto. If it's an ER, or IR verb, it gets an edo. Okay. So the first thing we're going to do is, this is an AR verb, so we have to take off the AR and then change that with an auto. So it's cansado. But when we're using the past participle to describe the condition of something, we have to make it match. It basically becomes an adjective, and the past participle has to match the subject or whatever it is that it's describing in gender and number. So los alumnos is still masculine, so this is masculine, but it is plural, so we have to make cansado, cansados. Okay, so that's all that is. You may have something like La niña en sorprender. So she has a surprise party and she comes in and she's surprised. So that is a condition. So the first thing we have to do is conjugate estar for la niña. So we say la niña está. And then this is an ER verb. So we look up here and ER, IR gets edo. So we take off the ER and add edo. But this is feminine, and this is currently masculine, so I have to change this to match the femininity of this word. So I say sorprendida. This is singular, so this stays singular, and the answer is la niña está sorprendida. Okay. The next section is part 2, and it's 6 through 10. This is going to be form the diminutive of each word. So when you do the diminutive, excuse me, you either end in, generally, the two endings are cito or ito. The general rule is if your word ends in an O, an A, or a consonant, it gets ito at the end. So O, A, consonant becomes ito. And then anything else gets a cito at the end. Okay. So, and these are general rules. Like I think each word has sometimes, like consonants can vary. So this is just going to be our rule for like this test and kind of in general. This is a good thing to stick with. But like I said, there could be exceptions. If you have something like this up here, if your word ends in an O or an A, you drop the O or the A first, and then you add ito. If it's a consonant or anything else, you just add the, if it's a consonant, you add ito. If it's anything else, you just add cito, so you don't have to drop anything. So if it ends in an O or an A, you drop the O or an A before ito. So you may have something like gato, cat, and you want to say like the little cat. So drop the O, add ito, becomes gatito. Okay. This does matter. These matter in gender. And so if you have a feminine, then you need to make it feminine. So if it was something like niña, you drop the A and you add ita. Niñita. Okay? So the O changes to an A because this is feminine. Let's see, professor. What's a good one for if you had something like padre, okay? This falls into the anything else. So you just add cito. Padre, cito. It's masculine, so this stays masculine. Okay? So there's 5 questions on that you just have to change this word to the ito or ita, the diminutive form. Okay. The third section is dealing with the emphatic possessive adjective, so that's going to be 11 through 15. Okay. And those were the possessive adjectives on page 200. There's a little chart. It was like mío, tuyo, suyo, nuestro, suyo. It says provide the correct emphatic possessive adjective to fill in the blank. Now, I've said emphatic possessive adjective because you have to use the chart, like you have to use the words from the chart on page 200. If you said me, su, tu, I would count it wrong. Okay, it has to be the emphatic possessive adjectives. That chart is found on page 200. So you're going to have basically just exactly what it says, a blank, and you're going to say something like, okay. Now remember that the emphatic possessive adjective kind of means like saying of yours. And it goes after the noun. So it's going to have the noun and then a blank of yours. So you have 2 options for yours. You can say suyo or tuyo. Now, this right here says informal, which means you have to use the informal form of yours, which is tuyo. Okay, so we have to use tuyo. But remember that the emphatic possessive adjectives have to match in gender and number to the noun that it's describing. So because this is masculine plural, this has to be masculine plural. So you say tuyos. Los libros tuyos. And that's it. If I said the backpack of mine, you want to say mine. So mine is mío, but this is feminine, so this has to become mía. It's singular, so this stays singular. Okay, so that's all you're going to do for that. Parts 4 and 5 are vocabulary. Part 4 is 16 to 20. And that is Spanish to English. And part 5 is 21 to 25. And that is English to Spanish. Same as always, it is straight from your vocabulary. I do want to point out you need to pay attention to the articles, definite articles. I will count off for that. If it says like las nubes, you have to say the clouds because you cannot forget the los or los or el or los. You have to say the if it has an el, la, los, or los, or you have to say a or an if it has un, una, unos, or unas. And then same with translating back to Spanish. If it says the donkey, you have to say el burro. Okay, so you have to include either a translation for the definite or indefinite articles. And then the last section is section 6. Okay, and that's going to be 3 questions. It's 26 through 28. Okay, translations. So these translations are going to mostly be dealing with what and the expressions on page 207. So like low plus an adjective. So you may have something like we do what we say. So remember that what is translated as low K because K with an accent mark is what, like a question. It's an interrogative word. And then K by itself is like that or which. Whoops, which. And so if you're trying to say what as a statement, not a question, it becomes low K. So to translate this, the verb for do is hacer. The verb for say is decir. Remember that decir and hablar are not the same things. So saying something and talking are not the same verb. So if you have we speak or we talk, it's hablar. If you have we say, then it has to be decir. So we conjugate this. We say yo hacemos lo que nosotros decimos. Okay? That's it. That's really the hardest part. Is just remembering that what as a statement is low K. And then you should know these verbs already. Okay? And then so you need to know like what, and then you need to know the low plus adjective expressions on page 207. So that's really just going to be memorization. So like lo bueno, lo malo, lo importante, lo fácil, lo bonito. Those are all expressions on page 207 that's low plus adjective. And so you need to know those because that's one of your questions. So if I said something like the bad thing is that he has to cook. Okay? You'd say the bad thing is the expression lo malo. It's lo plus an adjective. It's kind of like an impersonal way to say the bad thing or the bad part or the bad situation or whatever. So you have to use one of those expressions on page 207. Have to. I will mark it wrong if you don't. Okay? Lo malo es que is that el. Now remember, has to is an obligation. So it is tienes que. And then to cook is cocinar. And that's it. Okay? So basically for the translation, you need to remember that lo que is what, and you need to know the impersonal expressions, the lo plus adjective from page 207. You need to know, okay. So vocabulary for that, you need to know to do, you need to know have, you need to know to want, you need to know, to read, to have to, and to say. And then the low plus the adjective expressions on page 207. So remember that to have is a possession, so that's tener. And then to have to is an obligation, and that is tener. Okay, all right? And then there's 3 extra credit questions, just like always. And they deal with the culture readings from chapter 7. So vocabularies from chapter 7, cultures from chapter 7, just like always. So let me know if you have any questions, and good luck.